God wants us to place our future in His hands, believing in His benevolent goodness. Satan wants us to look into the future with fear. He fills our minds and imagination with anxiety and visions of sinister.
So my topic is on catastrophic thinking and the imagined scenario. But what is catastrophic thinking? It's imagining the worst case scenario possible without having any reason or facts behind it to support what you're thinking. So in essence, really, it's just having your mind run away with you with the worst possible scenario. So the one example, we sent a text to our loved one that didn't respond, and some of the things that you guys verbalized, she's angry, something terrible happened, why isn't she answering me, all this. Some other examples, my dad's here, he would be the first one to tell you if I know that he's driving somewhere a long distance or late at night, I'm going to tell him, you better text me when you get home. My friends and family can all testify to that. And if I don't hear from him or whoever within the time frame, that I think he should be there, I'm starting to worry. I'm getting frantic. I'm saying, what happened? I told him to send me a message, but he didn't answer me. Was there an accident? Did he pass out behind the wheel? Like, what's going on? And immediately we start thinking of the worst case things. The evil one and his minions have a way about infiltrating our minds with negative thoughts. He wants to instill in us a spirit of doubt, a spirit of fear, a spirit of
nervousness.
Exactly.
Anxiety.
Anxiety. So where does anxiety come from? Anxiety comes from not knowing the future. Filling our mind with all of these things of how we think something might play out, but we really have no real theoretical basis for it. But we know that that spirit of anxiety doesn't come from God. That comes from evil. That comes from Satan. God has given us a spirit of love, a spirit of trust, a spirit of gratitude, of thanksgiving. In the Bible, there are 365 references that say, do not be afraid. That's enough for every day of the year for us to hang on to get here. So I'm going to just share another example that was actually from discernment experience with the 14 rules of St. Ignatius of Loyola and Father Timothy Gallagher. It was about St. Therese. So St. Therese was called at a very young age to the Carmelite sisters. So it was the night before she was about to profess her vows, and all of a sudden she started thinking all these things. Maybe this is not for me. Maybe I've chosen the wrong path. Maybe this is all wrong. So she knew that she imagined that if she called her novice mistress out of the choir, they were supposed to be in a time of silence and prayer before she professed her vows the next day. So she called her novice mistress out, and she had this conversation with her that she told her everything she was thinking, that I'm having doubts and maybe this is not the right path for me and maybe I should leave. She imagined out the scenario that the woman would say to her, well, if you're feeling that way, then you're right. Then maybe you should just leave and go home and this is not for you. And that would have completely devastated everything that she worked so hard to give her life for. And she would have been completely crushed. So she was really scared to have that conversation. How many times have we in our lives had to have a difficult conversation with a boss, with an employee, with a family member or a friend where we're going to be talking about something uncomfortable and we're kind of projecting how it's going to go, and usually it's not in a positive way. It's all these negative thoughts when we don't know what the conversation is going to go like. So what happened was she did call the novice mistress to her, and they talked about it. They had a conversation, and what she did was she encouraged her. And she reassured her that this is the right path for her. And as soon as they had that conversation, that spirit of doubt and fear and negativity left her, and she went on to successfully profess her vows to the Carmelite sisters. So even Saint Therese experienced these types of things. We experience them every day. But what we have to remember is that sometimes God will allow us to be in a period of desolation, where we will feel isolated and not feel like we want to talk about these things or be fearful to talk about these things. Sometimes He'll allow that period of time so that we can become more strengthened in our faith, and that we can just rely on Him and come back to Him in prayer and thanksgiving, and we will eventually get through that period of desolation with any consolation that He offers us, whether it's spiritual consolation or whether it comes from something in nature or just something that comforts us. The period may go on for a while of that desolation, but it will come to an end. We don't know how long, but God is always there for us because He is a God of the present. He's not a God of the past or a God of the future. He can only meet us in the present where we are, and that's where He meets us at our point of need, where we can go to Him and know that He promised that He would never leave us alone. So even when we get our minds derailed by the evil one and all of these negative thoughts that he's trying to derail us, we know that God is always there with us. So it goes back to, again, and we can apply this to any circumstance in our lives, as Anna mentioned, awareness. So being aware that this happens, that He is there, that God and Satan are fighting for our minds. Understanding why is it happening? Really, we're in a spiritual battle here. God and Satan are fighting for souls. You know, Satan wants to get as many people as he can on his side so that we'll believe that God has abandoned us. But God is there, you know, letting us know that He loves us and that He hasn't abandoned us. So we have that understanding and now action. So what do we have to do to get away from these negative thoughts? It's not easy. It's not easy. We're challenged with this every day of our lives. But we have to pray. We have to have that spirit, that attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for our moments. Live one day at a time. Some days live one moment at a time. Whatever we have to do to get us to the next level, and then just always be aware that God is with us, and He's only with us in the present moment. That's where depression comes from, and anxiety, when we try to live in the past and try to be upset about the things we might have done wrong and how we can go back and fix them. And then a spirit of anxiety comes from the future and not knowing and being fearful of that future and having doubts and not knowing. So we have our minds filled with all of these possibilities that may not even come to pass. But remember, God meets us in our present moments, and He's with us always. So that's all I say about that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to quickly bounce on what you just said before I move to the next slide. That C.S. Lewis, in his book called The Spirit of Letters, the older devil telling the younger devil that human beings live in undulation. That means we have highs and we have lows. And the devil is telling the younger devil the best way to catch human being is when they are at their lows. Because at their lows, they're in desolation. At their low, that's why when we do the spirit of discernment, say, do not make decisions during your desolation time. When you're down, that's not your time to make decisions, because your mind is clouded. And that's the time Satan actually takes advantage of you, because he knows your spirit is low. He will not take advantage. When you are in the high spirit, you're fine. He doesn't need you're fine. He doesn't need to tempt you. It's when you're really down that he tempts you. with all these things. Why do we use food as our comfort food? Even when we know we're not supposed to. Because you're down. You reach out to comfort yourself. Oh, he's saying, eat some more. Eat some more. You want ice cream? Take some more. Add chocolate to it. And it's all in your mind because you're trying to comfort yourself. Now, this is not when to make those decisions at all. Because that's when he comes to tempt you in your desolation time. That's the law. It says we're going to keep that secret from the human beings so that they don't know. That's when we actually mess with their mind. When you're down. So, like she says, when we're down, that's the time to turn to God because He's coming after you quick, fast, like a roaring lion. It's not when you're happy. It's when you're really down that He gives you the punches. Do this, do this. Oh yes, that person doesn't like me. I just said good morning. That's when you start interjecting those negative thoughts in your head. Now,